She heard crying, 40 meters underground, 400 meters past the military demarcation line, inside a tunnel that every intelligence report said was empty. She stopped moving. Her hand found the wall, cold concrete, perfectly smooth, the kind of finish that takes years to build and means someone planned this very carefully. She turned off her headlamp. In the complete dark, 30 seconds from a hostile patrol that didn't know she was there yet, she counted the voices. 6, maybe 7. None of them belonged to soldiers. 3 days before, Captain Sera Voss had stood in a briefing room and listened to Lieutenant Colonel Yates explain why this assignment was simple. The tunnel had been detected by a seismic sensor, possible infiltration infrastructure, standard depth, standard protocol. Go in, assess the structure, confirm the entry coordinates, come back before first light. I'm sending Voss because this is an engineering assessment, Yates had told the room, not an operation. The distinction seemed important to him. The man standing beside her, Staff Sergeant Holt, assigned to her team as security, had nodded in the way people nod when they've already decided they won't be taking direction from the person next to them. She had noticed. She hadn't said anything. What she had done, after the briefing, was pull the seismic data herself and run the depth analysis twice. The tunnel bottomed out at 41 meters. Standard North Korean infiltration tunnels ran between 15 and 25. She had written that discrepancy on a notepad, underlined it once, and brought the notepad with her. Nobody had asked what was on it. At the mouth of the passage, Holt had done the thing she expected him to do. Engineering lead goes in. I go first. That's protocol. Understood, she said. You stay behind me. You don't touch anything structural without telling me. You flag anything that looks unstable, and we withdraw. Clear. She was already reviewing the entry angle on her tablet. The passage bore northeast, not north. Northeast, a 7-degree deviation that the briefing document hadn't mentioned, and that changed the tunnel's likely terminus by nearly 400 meters. Captain, Holt's voice sharpened. I asked if that was clear. She put her tablet in her bag. You go first, she said. I won't touch anything without telling you. She followed him into the tunnel. She did not mention the deviation. The first 120 meters confirmed what she already suspected. The eastern wall showed 2 construction phases, the original earthen passage, and a second layer of poured concrete added years later. The concrete was consistent in density and finish, deliberate, patient. Someone had come back to this tunnel and improved it, and they'd done it with a purpose the original builders hadn't intended. She ran her rebar scanner along the ceiling. The reading stopped her mid-step. The rebar pattern was wrong, not structurally wrong. The load math was sound. But the configuration, the specific spacing and gauge, was not the pattern used in military infrastructure. It was the pattern used in residential construction, the kind of build specification designed to protect people living inside a structure, not troops moving through one. She stared at the reading. Then she heard Holt say her name in a voice she hadn't heard from him before. She looked up. There were 7 of them, pressed against the eastern wall in a natural widening of the passage. The oldest, a boy, maybe 15, had positioned himself in front of the others. His hands were out, empty. He knew what soldiers looked like when they found something they weren't expecting. The youngest was a girl. She had her face turned into the shoulder of the boy beside her. Her shoes were 2 sizes too large, tied with electrical wire. Nobody spoke. Holt hadn't lowered his weapon. Voss stepped around him. She crouched down slowly, deliberately, to the level of the youngest girl. She didn't speak. She didn't reach out. She just held still in the way you hold still when you need something frightened to understand that you are not the danger. The girl turned her head, looked at Voss for a long moment, then reached out and wrapped 2 fingers around Voss's glove. Holt had the radio out before she stood up. Base, this is Holt. Marker, Delta. We have civilians. Repeat, we have civilian personnel underground. Requesting immediate guidance. Over. The response came back broken. 3 words through the interference. The 3 words that collapsed every option except one. Patrol, north entrance. Withdraw. Holt looked at her. 7 children between them and the south exit. A patrol at the north entrance, already inside and moving fast. And a tunnel that she now understood from the rebar data, from the construction phasing, from the deviation that put the terminus 400 meters east of the briefing coordinates, was not what anyone in that briefing room thought it was. How long, she said. 10 minutes, maybe less. She opened her tablet. Her hands moved fast. What are you doing? Holt said. Counting. She pulled the tunnel schematic she'd been building since the entrance. entry angle, construction transition point, stress fracture locations, ceiling load ratios. The transition point is 40 meters north of us. That's where the old construction meets the new. That's the weakest seam in this passage. You want to blow the tunnel. I want to collapse 40 meters of it, controlled, before the patrol reaches the seam. She turned the tablet toward him. If I do it at the right point, this section stays standing long enough for us to reach the exit. Holt looked at the schematic, then at the 7 children watching them with the absolute focus of people who understood that whatever was being decided about them. If you calculate wrong, I know. You've done controlled demolition in an active board. We need to move them first. He held her gaze for 2 seconds. Then he slung his rifle and moved to the front of the line. She put the oldest boy directly behind Holt. She went to the back, between her and the North Passage. 40 meters, a patrol she could now hear clearly, and a detonator she had 30 seconds to place correctly. She moved fast. No headlamp. The patrol was close enough that light would carry. Her hands found the transition point in the dark by feel, the exact place where the smooth concrete ended and the older, rougher surface began. She'd been tracking that seam with her fingertips since the first 100 meters. She placed the charge by touch. She double-checked the position by touch. She ran the wire back south and caught up to the group in 40 steps. The youngest girl was still looking back for her. She touched the girl's shoulder once. Keep moving, and they moved. At 60 meters, the patrol's footsteps were close enough to count. At 70 meters, the oldest boy stumbled. Holt caught him without breaking stride. At 80 meters, Voss looked at the ceiling one final time. She calculated the load. She calculated the margin. She pressed the detonator. It wasn't an explosion. It was a sound like the earth deciding something, a deep, contained compression that moved through the floor before it moved through the air. Dust fell in sheets. 2 of the children made sounds that were not quite screams. Holt had his arms around the nearest 2 before the echo had finished. Then the tunnel stopped moving. Voss walked back north, alone, 20 meters into the passage, and put her headlamp on the ceiling, intact. She walked it for 10 meters, ran the scanner once, holding. She came back to where Holt was standing with 7 children who were looking at her with expressions that had no language for what they had just survived. Holt said, "How close was that margin?" She looked at her tablet, at the load numbers she had built from 40 minutes of data and a flashlight in a foreign tunnel with footsteps coming. "Close," she said. She picked up her bag and walked to the front of the line. They came out at 0528. The response team was already at the perimeter. Someone had caught enough of Holt's transmission to scramble a medical unit. Blankets, water, voices low and deliberate. Yates was at the tree line. He looked at the children. He looked at Voss. He looked at the tunnel entrance behind her, which was emitting a thin ribbon of dust from somewhere 40 meters in. Her orders were assessment and withdrawal. "Captain." "Yes, sir." "There is nothing in your operational parameters about demolition charges." "No, sir." "Or civilian extraction." "No, sir." He was quiet for a moment. The youngest girl was 20 feet away, wrapped in a foil blanket, watching the tree line the way children watch places that have previously produced bad things. She was drinking water with both hands. Yates looked at her for a long time. Then he looked back at Voss. "The patrol sealed in north section is non-traversable for at least 40 meters. They'll find egress. It'll take them hours." He nodded slowly. The expression on his face wasn't approval. Exactly. It was something quieter than that. The look of a man revising an assumption he hadn't known he was carrying. "Get your debrief done," he said. He walked toward the children. Holt found her at the equipment table an hour later. He'd been working through it. She could see that, the way someone looks when they've been reconstructing a sequence backward, looking for the moment they missed. "The rebar readings," he said. "You knew something was wrong before we even reached them." She set down her transit level. The tunnel wasn't built for soldiers. She picked up her bag. The spacing, the gauge, the construction phasing. Someone built that passage for people who needed to move through it quietly and survive, not fight. She zipped the bag. "We were trying to do the same thing." She walked toward the transport. The official report classified it as a structural emergency response, which was accurate, as far as reports go. What it didn't say, what no form in any military branch has ever been designed to capture, is what it looks like when someone does the full calculation, sees the margin clearly, understands exactly how wrong it could go, and places the charge anyway, because the children were already at the back of the line, and someone had to be behind them.